Good morning. The regular Tuesday, March 21st, 2017 Board of County Commissioners meeting will now be called to order. We'll begin with an invocation by Deputy Teddy Floyd from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Susan Adams. Please rise.
Let's bow our head. Father, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for this day. Thank you for this moment. And God, just thank you for being in Indian River County. God, we ask that you bless our commissioners, my sheriff, and our command staff, all the officers and dignitaries in their positions and their families. But most of all, God, we want to bless Indian River County. We ask that you give us understanding, the wisdom to continue to learn, and protect us, God. Let us make wise decisions, and let us keep moving forward, God, for success. And God, we just want to thank you so very much for being here this day. We'll be ever so careful to give you the praise. Let us say amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Teddy.
Everybody please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. All right, first item on the agenda, is there any additions, deletions to the agenda other than the deletion of 13A by the county attorney?
Move agenda.
Second.
That's a motion by Commissioner Solari, seconded by Vice Chair O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. First item on the agenda is a proclamation presentation, honoring Leona Adair Allen on her retirement from the Indian River County Clerk of the Court and Controller. I'll be presenting Leona. And her entire team is here.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Please join Leona. Please join Leona. And her former supervisor, Maria, nice to see you. And Jeff Smith. Thank you. Well, let's get the proclamation over, and then we'll talk. This proclamation is honoring Leona Adair Allen on her retirement from Indian River County Clerk of the Court and Controller. Whereas Leona Adair Allen is retiring from the Indian River County Clerk of the Court and Controller's Office, effective April 28, 2017. Whereas after her retirement from the United States Air Force, Leona began her career with the Indian River County Clerk of the Court and Controller, working in the Civil Division and later transferred to the to the Board, the Value Adjustment Board office in October 6, 2006. And whereas Leona held the position of Recording Secretary, recording the minutes of the Board of the County Commissioners, and maintaining the county's official records. Whereas Leona received the Clerk of the Circuit Court and Controller's Employee of the Quarter Appreciation Award during the first quarter in 2008, and for outstanding performance, productivity, dedication, and service. Whereas Leona learned and trained and approximately 15 old and new computer program systems throughout her career in the Clerk to the Board office, and assisted in the acquisition and implementation of the newest computer programs, Laserfiche, document management, and the Granicus software programs. Whereas Leona's ethics, perseverance, commitment, and enthusiasm to the Indian River County and to the employees of the Clerk of the Circuit Court and to the Board of the County Commissioners has been greatly appreciated by all of her co-workers and her employer. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board applauds Leona Adair Allen's efforts on behalf of the county, and the board wishes to express their appreciation of the dedicated service that she has given to Indian River County. And be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners and staff extend their heartfelt wishes for success in her future endeavors and a happy and prosperous retirement. Duly adopted this 21st day of March 2017, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Well, Leona, the day has come.
Yes, it has.
Good morning.
Good morning. I didn't prepare a speech, but I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that it's been a pleasure working for Mr. Smith and with all of my co-workers here. And it's also been a pleasure working with you, the board, and your office assistants. So I thank you for the proclamation.
As with today is no different than any other day, you've been a person of few words in the verbal, but I just have to say I want to thank you for your dedication and your accuracy and attention to detail on accounting for what we do. We have to be accountable, but there may come a time 10 years up the road, 50 years up the road, 100 years up the road, where there won't be, maybe some of us might not be here, but your work will be here in perpetuity. So, you know, you're supposed to leave a legacy. You've left more than a legacy. You left all of our words and all of our actions intact. And, you know, whether it's part of a FOIL request or if someone's looking at the internet and wanted to know what happened at a certain event, you've done that, and you've done that well, and never any question. And I have to say that during that time when we have spoken, I had to remind myself that you weren't an Indian River County Board of County Commissioners employee, because you work for another constitutional officer, Jeff Smith. And the way you conduct yourself, I had to remind myself that you weren't our employee, but you were accounting for all of our actions. And I want to say that I admire the way you've worked, and I want to thank you and wish you the best of success in the future in your next endeavor. Perhaps maybe there's another retirement up the road, I don't know. But I also want to thank you for your service to the United States Air Force, Major. Thank you. And we appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
I see Jeff Smith is easing over to the microphone, and I know he might have to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman. This is always an emotional time for me when I lose an employee to retirement, but I'm particularly emotional about this one. She has taken my leadership, you know, the change in leadership when I became clerk from Jeff Barton, and she's followed my leadership and accepted everything that decisions I've made. And perhaps, though, the one thing that I'm going to remember her for more than anything else is her love for the Lord. And so I really appreciate Leona, her service to the United States of America in her military career, and also to here in Indian River County, the citizens here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
As we were riding, we were reminded that Commissioner O'Brien and I had started at the same time you did, and you're retiring.
Yeah. Shucks, is that the right order?
Yeah, there's probably some people that feel it's the wrong order.
Well, there's always.
There we go.
Okay, everyone ready? On three. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. I have another camera.
Make sure you get Terry's good knee on this one too, Scott.
On 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
All right.
Thank you. Leona, thank you once again. Oh, we could put that all
Falling
together.
apart?
We have experts here. The next item on the agenda is a presentation and proclamation designating April 2nd through April 8th as in 2017 as Crime Victims' Rights Week. That will be presented by Commissioner Adams, and we have quite a group to step forward to the podium. Why doesn't everybody gather around? We know that
Wonderful.
you all have a
Welcome.
prepared speech.
It's my pleasure to present a proclamation designating April 2nd through April 8th, 2017 as Crime Victims' Rights Week. Whereas victims of crime across America need and deserve support and assistance to help them cope with the consequences of crime. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week offers us all the opportunity to promote strength and unity in helping victims and survivors of crime through a wide range of supportive services offered by over 10,000 community and justice system-based programs and the more than 32,000 federal and state statutes that define and protect their rights. And whereas, by being united against crime and for victims' rights and services, we gain strength as individuals, as communities, and as a nation as a whole, and offer strength to victims who seek to recover in the aftermath of crime. And whereas, America has joined together annually each April since 1981 to recognize the needs and rights of crime victims and survivors during National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that April 2nd through April 8th, 2017 be designated as Crime Victims' Rights Week in Indian River County, and the Board honors crime victims and those who serve them during this week throughout the year. Adopted this 21st day of March and signed by all 5 county commissioners.
Good morning. I'm Paul Zelno. I'm the chairman for the Indian River County Victims' Rights Coalition. And with me today is, we have a number of people from the coalition. Audrey Mosi, she's the victim advocate from the Indian River County Indian River County Sheriff's Office, excuse me. We have Christine Macchia, she's a victim advocate from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. Laura Saputo, victim advocate from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. Ruby Prieto, she's an attorney for Safe Space and also a coalition member. And recently promoted Major Eric Flowers from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. So I want to thank all the members of the county commissioners for signing the proclamation and declaring today for the week of March 2nd through the 8th as Crime Victims' Rights Week. As a coalition, we work to help and financially assist all victims of crime in Indian River County. Our mission remains to increase community awareness of victims' issues, increase victims' awareness of community services and the support that we offer, and support National Victims of Crime Week's activities. And I would add a new item to that agenda to help to support law enforcement. This year we sponsored a 3rd annual Officer of the Year awards presentation to an officer from each of the 6 law enforcement agencies throughout the county. This year during Victims of Crime Week, we're going to sponsor a women's self-defense class on Thursday, April 6th at the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, compliments of the manpower and their expertise in self-defense for women. We also have the highlight of the Victims Memorial on Thursday, April 6th evening, honoring all victims of crime with a special guest speaker who was a victim of crime. So on behalf of the coalition, thank you for proclaiming this week of April 2nd through the April 8th as Crime Victims' Rights Week. to join forces with law enforcement agencies, criminal justice officials, and concerned citizens throughout Indian River County. And thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for your work.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Rory,
Thank you for everything.
thank you for what you do.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for everything. Good seeing you.
Paul?
Thank you very much.
That was in my purse. Why? I don't care. I was like, oh, look, I brought all my stuff. The things you'll find in my purse.
There you go. She's prepared.
Sample that was given to me.
Everyone ready? On three. One, two, three. One more. One, two.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
For all you do for veterans' rights. Next item on the agenda is a presentation proclamation designating April 15, 2017 as Jackie Robinson Day, and that'll be presented by Commissioner Solari. Michael?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Kent.
Good
Very
morning,
glad
all.
to have you with you, and
Mr. Peterson,
Mr.
Jeff Peterson.
Thank you very much for coming today. I'm very happy today to read this proclamation designating April 15th, 2017 as Jackie Robinson Day. Whereas April 15th, 2017 will mark the 70th anniversary of Jackie Robinson in making his major league debut with the Brooklyn Dodgers as he broke the color barrier in 1947 to become the first African American to play Major League Baseball. And whereas Jackie Robinson spent 9 spring trainings from 1948 through 1956 at Dodgertown, Vero Beach, and the Dodgers advanced to the World Series 5 times in those years. And whereas in 1948, Dodgertown became the first and only integrated spring training site in the South. And whereas Major and Minor League Baseball celebrates Jackie Robinson Day nationally each April 15th. And whereas Mr. Pat O'Connor, Minor League Baseball President and CEO, said, Minor League Baseball is proud to be part of this annual celebration in Vero Beach as we play a game at historic Dodgertown to honor him. And whereas the 4th annual Jackie Robinson celebration game will take place on Saturday, April 15th, 2017 in Holman Stadium when the St. Lucie Mets host the Florida Fire Frogs to benefit a worthy cause, the United Way of Indian River County. And whereas the cost of this minor league baseball game is kept low so that it can be a true community-wide celebration. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board designates April 15th, 2017 as Jackie Robinson Day, and hereby congratulates Major League Baseball on its work and success in Indian River County over the past 69 years. Adopted this 21st day of March 2017 and signed by all 5 members of the Board of County Commissioners.
Commissioners, thank you so much. The Jackie Robinson Celebration Game, this is our 4th annual, is one of the few opportunities that the residents of Indian River County get to come back to Holman Stadium and see some professional baseball. It's not like it used to be, we get that, but I tell you, anybody and everybody who's come out to any of the other games, it is a flash to the past, it's a blowback, and it's a lot of fun. Getting the game together takes a lot of work. I've got a great steering committee. Jeff Peterson is representing some of my volunteers as well. Historic Dodgertown does a great job, minor league baseball, but we get lots of help from a lot of people, starting with Jason and some of the troops from the county, the sheriff, the deputies that have a real challenge when you try to pull between 5,000 and 7,000 people into the stadium kind of all at one time, in and out. We get help from a lot of other departments. It's a situation that just takes a little effort from a lot of people. But in the end, it's a fantastic time to sit in the stadium, have a Dodger dog and your favorite beverage, and enjoy good baseball. It has been a rivalry between the St. Lucie Mets and, until this year, the Manatees out of Brevard. So it's sort of a 95 rivalry, but as I think you know, that team is not there anymore. So we have the Fire Frogs, who most people don't know, but they're actually affiliated with the Braves. They are a Atlanta Braves franchise. So it's going to be a good game on top of everything else. And this is a real game. This isn't an exhibition. They're playing a series, part of their regular schedule where they shift to Dodgertown. A couple of particulars, and Jeff, jump in because I may forget everything that I'm supposed to remember. He asked if I brought prepared notes. He doesn't know me that well. Unlike Leona, I'm sorry, I'm a man of many words. The game is the 15th. Everybody thinks of April 15th as tax day, but that is the day that nationally we celebrate that at both Major League and minor league parks. The game time is at 6:35 in the evening, 6:35. If kids, youngsters, show up in their uniforms, the Little League players, the girls, if you are in a softball, we've got the opportunity to get those kids on the field and participate in some of the opening ceremonies or traditional first pitches. I know it's way down the list of things that we're celebrating, but everybody also knows that it's Commissioner O'Brien's anniversary, so I'm sure that he'll be recognized that evening. The fact is, it's a lot of fun. We invite everyone out. Tickets go on sale Thursday, the 23rd. They are available at every Seacoast Bank in St. Lucie, Indian River, or Brevard County. They're also available at Marine Bank. They're available at Historic Dodgertown. They're available at United Way. And they will be online, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the...
Yeah, well, it's going to be on the United Way website, unitedwayirc.org. There will be a little button right there to click, so if it's inconvenient to get to a bank branch, hopefully it will be convenient to go online and then also learn about what we do at the United Way if you're unfamiliar.
And the last thing I want to say is just that when all is said and done, we're celebrating a very significant event that Vero Beach, Florida played a role in. 70 years, this is the 70th year to celebrate the integration. And that's not insignificant in and of itself. So again, we thank you for the recognition, for the proclamation. We clearly want to invite everybody out. I said this last year and I meant it. It was a Friday night, and if you remember that night, I mean, we had a thunderstorm that passed over Holman Stadium about 20 minutes before the game. It was amazing the game got in, but it was a beautiful night. This is a Saturday night, and weather permitting, I am absolutely convinced for the first time we may actually pack the stadium. And it's been a lot of years since there's been 7,000 bodies in Holman Stadium. Guys, it could happen this year. Tickets are actually a couple of bucks cheaper if you buy them in advance. $6 across the board. We've got group sales. If you want group sales, just contact the United Way. Look at the website. It goes all the way up to $8 at day before and day of. So it's still very affordable. And we're working with a couple of sponsors, Waste Management and Minor League Baseball, to make sure that we've got several hundred kids that are going to be provided tickets and a hot dog and a beverage, a Coke, at the game. Again, I thank you all for your support, and we hope to see you all there as well.
Michael, I got to say that this combines a lot of greats.
Oh, it does.
I mean, it's a great historical event, honoring, I believe, a great personage in American history for a great cause, United Way, at a great facility. And for me, baseball is the great American sport. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great evening on April 15th.
Thanks, Bob.
One quick note, the doors do open at 4:30, and we do expect it to be packed. I think we're going to be limited by parking rather than seats because people are going to probably be standing watching the game. So good to show up early. And good to stay late. We have fireworks at the end of the game as well. So starting at the end of the game, we're going to have wonderful
It's true
fireworks.
that the fireworks are in honor of the O'Brien anniversary.
Every year.
If not partially, then wholly correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Michael brings his own photographer.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you at the game. Next item on the agenda is a presentation proclamation designating the week of March 19th through 25th as National Surveyors Week. Surveyors, come on down. And that'll be presented by Vice Chairman Peter O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see we have quite a few surveyors here. Come on up, and I'll read the proclamation, and maybe one of you can tell us a word or two about what we're going to be doing for Surveyors Week. But this is a proclamation designating the week of March 19 through 25, 2017, as National Surveyors Week. Whereas land surveyors are counted among the founding leaders of our country and were instrumental in the formation of the layout of property boundaries in the United States, providing our citizens the opportunity to enjoy the American dream of property ownership. And whereas United States Presidents George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Abraham Lincoln all served as surveyors, contributing to the historical mapping of America in its early years. And whereas the surveying profession requires special education, training, the knowledge of mathematics, the related physical and applied sciences, and requirements of law for evidence. And whereas surveyors are uniquely qualified and licensed to determine and describe land and water boundaries for the management of natural resources and protection of private and public property rights. And whereas the continual advancements in instrumentation have required the surveyor to not only be able to understand and implement the methods of the past, but also to learn and employ modern technology in finding solutions to meet the challenges of time. And whereas the citizens of Indian River County recognize the valuable contributions of the surveying profession to history, development, and quality of life throughout our country, and make important decisions based on the knowledge and expertise of licensed surveyors and mappers. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners, Indian River County, Florida, that the week of March 19 through 25, 2017, be designated as National Surveyors Week in Indian River County, and the board encourages all citizens to recognize the many contributions and the ongoing dedication of surveyors to our community and throughout the United States. Adopted this 21st day of March, 2017, signed and endorsed by all 5 county commissioners. Gentlemen, tell us a little bit about surveying.
Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much for the recognition. My name is Chad Maxwell. I'm the president of the Indian River chapter of the Florida Survey and Mapping Society. I'm proud to share this proclamation with members behind me who are also surveyors in this community. Thank you for shining a light on our profession generally. As stated in the proclamation, ours is a long, our profession benefits from a long and storied profession here in the United States. But I'd like to trace our roots back a little further. Surveying and mapping is found at the intersection of technology, science and technology. It was born out of agriculture and engineering. We can trace our roots back through ancient Greece, Euclidean geometry, back through Babylon with the first cadasters in their boundary monuments and boundary stones. And further back to ancient Egypt with the rope stretchers who would reestablish farming plots after the Nile would flood. So we stand in many ways as a profession on the shoulder of history. And we're very proud of that. We've progressed, especially recently. We've come a very long way from rods and chains and compasses, and I'm sure these guys would attest that they're glad to see those things go. But we've progressed into more science and mathematical models and ways of doing things. Geodesy, remote sensing, photogrammetry are all mainstays in our profession now, and it's those tools that we employ on a daily basis, and those tools that will continue to help serve the public good. Our profession enjoys a long history and a proud tradition, and it's one of public service and innovation. We provide essential information about the world around us, which helps the community plan and make use of the space that we have to organize the way that we go about our lives. And I would encourage you and ask for your continued support of our profession and our efforts. And we thank you that we have the opportunity to serve the public the way that we do. Ours is also a profession in need. In many ways, our profession is encumbered by the retirement of the baby boom generation. We are one that desperately needs people to pursue degrees, to pursue an education in surveying and mapping, and to continue on to professional licensure so that they can spend a career serving the public. We, as a chapter, we vigorously support the 2 universities in the state that provide geomatics degrees, one at Florida Atlantic University down in Boca, one in the University of Florida in Gainesville. And we would ask you and the community to join us in those efforts. Once again, thank you. I want to note before we leave, people always ask, well, what exactly do you do? And these guys might have a better answer. I'm earlier in my career, so I haven't got that one quite nailed down yet. But what I always tell people is we're more than the guys that just stand on the side of the road. We are in every way. These guys that stand behind me who represent the profession, these guys are innovators, they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners. They're people that genuinely care about the public good and the public interest. And so I want to thank them and thank you also for this recognition. On a personal note, I also, if you'll grant me one last thing, I'm very humbled and grateful to be accepting this honor in the place that I call home. I'm a product of this community, and so more than surveying and mapping, I want to thank you guys for continuing your effort on behalf of the community more generally. I drew my first breath here at Indian River Memorial Hospital. I learned I developed the passion for math and science at Osceola Magnet School, continued at Gifford Middle, and then ultimately at Vero Beach High School. And from there I went to university, but proud to be back. Proud to be, I guess, a helpful member of the community. So thank you for this recognition.
Welcome back home.
Thank you.
Glad you came back home, Chad.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wear your vest. Oh.
Good morning. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
down this morning.
David, how you doing? Good, good.
And we got Dave.
David, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us today.
Oh. He's starting trouble. Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Good? All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation on Florida Department of Transportation Treasure Coast Regional Household Travel Survey by Tamara Phillips, Public Information Officer from Quest Corporation of America.
She's here.
And I don't know if she's here. We'll just reserve that. If she does arrive, we'll just come back to it with your indulgence, Commissioners. Thank you. Next item is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of January 24, 2017, regular meeting of February 7, 2017, and regular meeting of February 14, 2017.
Move approval.
Second.
And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Informational items. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, just, there is another retirement, Francis Smith, with 16 years of service in the Department of Utilities. So thank you, Francis, for your long and loyal service to the community.
And of course, and thank you. And of course, the on the informational items is the Indian River County venue event calendar, and I urge all to look at the website and see some of the exciting events that are happening here in Indian River County with our Recreation Department and Facilities Management. Next item is the consent agenda. Commissioners? Is there any member of the public that wishes to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Commissioners?
Move to approve consent as presented.
Second. Any further discussion? That's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move on to constitutional officers and governmental agencies, which is the Indian River County Supervisor elections. Leslie Swan, regarding the RFP 2017039 for the purchase of new voting system for Indian River County. Good morning, Supervisor-elect Swan.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you today? I'm Leslie Swan, Supervisor of Elections, and I'm here today with several of my staff members, and we are presenting the Request for Proposal Review Committee's recommendation for a new voting system for Indian River County. As you all know, our voting system has reached its end of life. Our tabulation system is over 15 years old. Our manufacturer of our equipment is no longer in business. And we also need the new voting system to comply with Florida Statute 101.56075, where voters with disabilities can vote unassisted using a paper ballot. Currently, voters with disabilities are voting on our touchscreen voting machine, which does not have paper ballot. On January 30th, an RFP was issued for a new voting system. The state of Florida has 2 certified vendors, Dominion Voting Systems and Election Systems and Software, which we call ES&S. And after a thorough review of the proposals from both of the vendors, as well as demonstrations that we had here in our office, the review committee unanimously recommends ES&S voting systems. 43 out of the 67 counties in the state of Florida use ES&S as their voting system vendor. And 3 years ago, when I came before the board, I had an estimate that it would cost about $1.4 million for this system. But I'm pleased to inform the board that the proposed system is under $1 million. It's $944,568. And Indian River County is one of a handful of counties that has not upgraded their voting system yet. Therefore, we were in a position to receive very favorable pricing, and I believe that waiting until after the presidential election really put us at a pricing advantage. So we're about a third less than the cost we had estimated. ES&S gave us a nice customer discount and trade-in allowance for our current voting equipment. What will be a little bit more expensive is the annual software licenses and maintenance costs. for the new system, and there's a reason for that. In 2002, Indian River County had touchscreen voting machines throughout the entire county. In 2008, the legislature made us upgrade to an optical scan system using paper ballots, and we would use the touchscreen machines for voters with disabilities. So we had a surplus of touchscreen machines, so at that time we made a decision to not pay any warranty costs because we had such a surplus of the equipment. So we saved money on that, as well as we have 2 high-speed tabulators. One of them we've been paying warranty cost on. The second one has been on loan from the company from Sequoia since before I started working at the elections office, and we never paid for that second unit. So the cost for the maintenance and software is going to go from about $64,000 to about $90,000, $91,000 a year. My staff and I are here today to ask the board if we can proceed in formalizing a contract with ES&S, and also if you will approve to allow us to trade in our existing Sequoia equipment. We feel confident that the ES&S system is the best fit for Indian River County. And at this time, I would be remiss if I did not publicly thank Jennifer Hyde with the purchasing department and her staff. I've never purchased a voting system before. I've never gone out to RFP, and they were fantastic and guided us along the entire journey. So we look forward to conducting our next election in November, which will be for the cities of Vero Beach, Sebastian, and Fellsmere, utilizing the new equipment. The vendor will be in site to help us transition, and so then we'll be all set to go in 2018 for the gubernatorial election cycle. So I want to thank the board for your support in the purchase of this equipment. Those of you that have served on the canvassing board know how antiquated our equipment is, so we're really looking forward to the new system. And we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be very happy to both approve the purchase of the new equipment and the trade-in.
Second.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Liz, are you hearing anything in Tallahassee, any bills out there that might change any of this again, or is it pretty quiet
No,
this year?
It's pretty quiet this year when it comes to that. They have some other good bills, and the one I'm really looking forward to is the ERIC system, where we can share information with other states to see if people are registered in 2 different states. So we're really hoping that passes.
Great, good, thank you.
Anything further, Commissioner Adams? Is there anybody from the public that wishes to comment on the purchasing of the new election services equipment? Seeing none. Leslie, the only thing I'm concerned about is that, as you mentioned, we serve on the canvassing board, and there's going to be a bidding war on who gets to break in the new equipment, because we have all endured the challenges that your staff has done so very well, but with, as you say, equipment that has well served its lifespan. So we wish you the best on your new equipment.
Well, thank you very much.
Staff as well. I see you
very
brought your
grateful.
entire staff here. And that's a motion by Commissioner Solari, seconded by myself. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously 4-0 with Commissioner Zorc absent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, commissioners.
Thank you. Now, I see, as we were doing the presentation, that I believe that our representative from the Florida Department of Transportation has arrived. And once again, we'll just go back to the presentation for the Florida Department of Transportation Treasure Coast Regional Household Survey by Tamara Phillips.
Is that not
Is-
Tamara? Okay.
No? Okay. Well, we'll give it one more shot before we close the meeting. Next item on the agenda is, I thought she was here, is the public item, which is a public hearing, and that's agenda item 10A1. And that item is a request by Florida Power and Light Company for a special exception for approval for a private heavy utility solar energy center to be located on the east side of 122nd Avenue Southwest, immediately north of the Indian River County, St. Lucie County boundary. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding, and the parties of the proceeding are Indian River County and Florida Power and Light. At this time, as customary, we need to, and required, we need to ask all the commissioners to disclose any ex parte communications, site visits, or independent investigations, and we'll start with Commissioner Adams. Commissioner Solari?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I did have one conversation with a couple people from FP&L when they first decided to propose this project. It was at the BCC conference room, and it went over general details of the project, but not any real specifics dealing with the project.
Thank you. And Commissioner
I had
Barr?
a similar meeting with FP&L representatives at the conference room, and it was general in nature.
And I also had a similar meeting, and I believe it had no specifics. It was just a general announcement that a project was coming forward, but that's the entire discussion on that. Next item is, do we want to confirm that the commissioners have an open mind and are able to base their decision on the evidence presented with applicable law? Do you have an open mind?
I do have an open mind.
I knew you
All
did.
day.
Oh, wait. But on this specific,
Particularly to this
you have to,
particular project, my mind is wide open.
wide open. Thank you. Commissioner Solari?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And I am a yes.
I can and will. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask the clerk to swear in any and all witnesses collectively. If you intend on speaking or engage in any activity with this decision, you need to stand and be recognized and sworn in by the clerk. Clerk?
We're sworn.
Thank you. Well, first we'll have the presentation by staff. Good morning, John.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Fleischer. For the record, I'm John McCoy with the County Planning Department, and this is a request from Florida Power and Light for special exception use approval for a solar energy facility. And solar energy facilities are classified as heavy utility uses in our zoning code, and they do require special exception use approval in the agricultural zoning districts. And the special exception use approval process requires 2 public hearings. First one before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and this applicant did receive a favorable recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and now it's here before you all. They also need to demonstrate compliance with our Chapter 971 criteria, and that's outlined in your staff report how they comply. We did send out mail-out surrounding property owners notices to adjacent property owners. We have not gotten any response to those notices, and now it's to be considered by the Board of County Commissioners. The subject site is located at the South County line, just north of the St. Lucie County line. Staff did coordinate with St. Lucie County Planning and Zoning staff, make them aware of the application. The site, again, is located right at the South County line, just east of 122nd Avenue. The aerial shows the site very well, and it's accessed from 122nd Avenue. This is a more detailed vicinity map, zoning map of the subject site. It is zoned A2, agricultural 2, and it allows residential uses at a density of 1 unit per 10 acres. Also allows agricultural uses, also allows this type of use through the special exception process. The subject site's almost 700 acres in size, so it is a fairly large site. The aerial, again, is zoomed in on the subject site. You can see that the surrounding uses are primarily agricultural, or all agricultural in nature. The subject site has been involved in citrus production in the past, and the developed portion will be converted from citrus production to solar facility if approved. The next slide shows a overall site plan, and it's really the northern, call it half of the subject site that's being developed, and the southern, sort of less than half, is remaining vacant in agriculturally zoned property. So it's really the northern portion away from St. Lucie County where the development will be occurring. With that, this is more of a detail. So you can see how the solar arrays line up, and the solar arrays are basically the portions between the two lines. So that's where the solar arrays, and those are really the majority of what's occurring on the site are the arrays. And then in the very northeast corner, there's a substation involved. So the vast majority is the arrays. Next slide shows even a little bit more detail, or zoomed, or shows the stabilized access ways. And this is how they'll access the arrays and maintain it. And on the western side off 122nd is actually how they'll access the site. The site is an unmanned secured facility, so there are not employees on the site on a day-to-day basis. So it will be secured and unmanned. This is a very zoomed-in look at the access way. And again, the stabilized paths between the arrays to show how they'll access the arrays for maintenance purposes. The purpose of this slide is twofold. One is basically construction access to the site, and with our Public Works Department, they wanted protection of any county-maintained culverts with some millings. There are not any on this particular route. If the route changes, Public Works wants to be notified, so it's sort of a precautionary condition. It's not anticipated that the access route will change. So again, that's sort of a precautionary condition. The other relates to unity of title. Right now, the site is in 3 separate parcels. And as indicated in our staff report indicates that through the unity of title process, combining into a single. The applicants contacted us since the staff report was written and asked that to be modified slightly. And staff supports that modification. Essentially what they want to do is take these 3 parcels and create 2 parcels out of them. So they want to create a parcel for the undeveloped portion, the southern portion, and then the developed portion, the northern portion, which makes a lot of sense. Staff supports that modification of that condition. So I just wanted to let you all know that.
John, would that be so maybe they're looking to either sell that southern parcel, or will they can break it off if they need to? Or?
They didn't discuss the reasons for or the intent for that. It makes sense from possibly a taxation purposes or other purposes, but they can clarify their intent on that reason. But they didn't share that with us. But that is a possibility. It would be available for sale. The next slide relates to the landscape plan. And the landscape plan is solely related to the substation and its perimeter landscaping at the substation on the north perimeter and the east perimeter. And that's the extent of the landscape plan
John,
involved with this particular.
If I may, is there any way to make it so they don't have to have any landscape plan? I mean, I go back to when we had the mining ordinance, and the people had to have a significant landscape plan, which the board downgraded a little bit when reality set in. And in the one mine under consideration, the only person that was going to benefit, well, the only thing that was going to be benefited by that landscape plan was a cow in the field. And I want to note, based on your overhead, there's not even a cow here. Mm-hmm. I mean, and sometimes I understand why we have something like this in the code, generally speaking, but common sense to me says that in reality we'd be better off with no landscape plan, because I don't even know how they're going to maintain it. And at the end of the day, you're going to see scrubby little things that basically look like they're underprivileged trees. And so anyway, if there's any way to let reality in here, I'd like to take the opportunity to. If not, good luck FP&L in maintaining these trees.
But let me take a moment and explain to you how we got here through the code process and through the review process. So the slide right now is showing the north and east perimeter. I want to back up a couple slides just to hopefully put it in context. With the aerial, The substation is right here. And the substation is the one element of the facility that looks like a conventional electrical facility. The rest of the solar arrays are, I think we're familiar with what the solar arrays look like. It is on the perimeter of the project. In speaking with the applicant through the course of review, as best we can figure, these facilities have a life cycle 20 to 40 years. So that's sort of the time frame that we're looking at, that while, possibly not likely, somebody could build, whether it be a home or other structure, along the north property line or the east property line, where that landscaping would provide a benefit. That's how we got there.
And I'll note that at least on the east side, I believe that's a ditch there, and that ditch would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 foot wide, and then you'd have setbacks on both sides, and in reality, those ditches on the sides aren't maintained like ones in urban area, and they're already grown up with a lot of foliage and everything like that. And so again, reality just suggests that we understand why the general rule is, but common sense sometimes indicates that the general rule ought not to apply in the specific instance.
As the staff saw it, the code did.
I understand the code says there, and staff is in the office working with the code,
Right.
but if there is a way out, I'd like to take it, because again, it's just not a good use of resources in our society.
At that point, I would defer to the attorney to say what we could do different than the land development regulations is.
That's fine, I understand.
Well, obviously the request would have to comply with the code requirements unless there was some sort of variance from it.
Okay, in this case, I'll just apologize to FP&L for the silliness of this particular instance, as well as the stormwater plan, which is coming up. I'll get that out now. I mean, the whole area is a 28,000 acre stormwater district. And in the individual spot, they're going to have to worry about potential stormwater in that area, even though they're surrounded by multiple ditches on all sides. So I appreciate you for letting me get at that now.
Okay.
And I would just say that, looking at either the stormwater or the trees ought to be with as much of a common sense outlook as possible. Thank you.
Okay. And if you want, I can talk a little bit about stormwater.
Well, I mean, for me, it'll just irritate me at this point.
Okay. I'll pass on that opportunity then, unless there are some questions related to stormwater. And I'll get back to the presentation at hand. As I mentioned, this did go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. They did unanimously recommend approval, 5-0, with the conditions that you all have seen before you. With that, staff does recommend that the Board of County Commissioners grant approval of the special exception use with the modified condition related to the unity of title, the landscape, and if they do change routes, protecting the culvert crossings. With that, I would like to note there are representatives from FP&L here. They do have a short presentation they'd like to get, and I'm also available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
I actually have a clarification of staff. John, you referenced the three conditions. The first being prior to site plan release, the applicant shall provide a recorded unity of title that combines the three separate parcels currently comprising the project site. We had an email from Bruce Barquette yesterday asking for a revised condition on this. Do you have revised language on this?
We don't have revised language. We do support their request to combine the three parcels into two parcels, generally for a parcel for the undeveloped portion and a parcel for the developed portion. And that, again, we would do our normal review. They would meet the A2 zoning district criteria, would be sort of the threshold review that we would perform.
Would it be helpful to clarify that prior to the site plan release, the applicant shall provide a recorded unity of title that combines the three separate parcels into two parcels, currently comprising the project site? Also, Mr. Barquette is here. He can address that. I just didn't know if we wanted to clarify that language in the conditions for future reference.
Certainly the staff would support such a clarification in that respect, that the three into two. And it may be two unity of titles that actually separate instruments.
Anything else, Council? With that, thank you, John. The next part of this discussion will be a presentation by Florida Power and Light.
Actually, to the chair, do you want to open up the public hearing now?
That's correct. We're having input, so we need to open up this public hearing, Counselor. Thank you. Good morning, Counselor.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, my name is Bruce Barquette. I'm here representing Florida Power and Light. I want to thank staff for the work that they've done to bring this forward, and on the staff report, which gave a very thorough explanation of the site. I also want to support the staff recommendation, and the modification that Mr. Reingold proposed is fine. Just turning the 3 sites into 2 with 1 or more unities of title works fine for us. Partially tongue-in-cheek, but partially true. When we come forward with special exceptions, sometimes you guys make up conditions that throw at us. And I think one of the conditions you could make up is we don't have to do landscaping. That is a $60,000 item that it doesn't make any sense.
The landscaping is $60,000?
That's what I'm being told. Is that yeah,
that
that's what we're looking
high
at.
For even that.
And if you can, again, it's kind of fun to play offense on a special exception. Everyone.
Let me just, while you're there, suggest something. Now, a lot of times we put in trees that are a small size. And I'm not going to guess. Just looking quickly at that, it looked like it was somewhere between 20 and 30 trees that were on the 2 sides of the building. But given that staff at this public hearing, sworn testimony, said that we're worried about something 20 to 40 years out, I would suggest that we limit the trees to 6 trees, spaced significantly apart, so anticipating their maturity date in 40 years when there may be something other than a cow in the field next to them. So I will perhaps make that part of a motion later on if that's not objectionable to my fellow commissioners and anybody from FP&L.
Are we good? Ms. Solar, we appreciate that. Thank you. This is the first of 2 solar farms that you're going to see, each producing 74.5 megawatts of power. And the second one will be going before the Planning and Zoning Commission on Thursday evening, and you'll be seeing it in about a month's time. They're almost identical in terms of production and how they work, and the site plan, of course, each site plan conforms to its own site, but you'll be seeing that. As I said, the staff has done a very good job of presenting the particulars of this site plan. We have a small presentation, a short presentation, providing more information about the project itself. After that, if you have any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them. But in the meantime, I'd like to introduce Mr. Bart Getchins to begin that PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bart Getchins, Area External Affairs Manager, 9001 Ellis Road in Melbourne. Okay, thank you. I wanted to tell you a little bit about not only Florida Power and Light, but about our parent company, NextEra Energy. Am I hitting the right? Okay, NextEra Energy, as you can see on the left in the green, we are the world's #1 producer of renewable energy that come from the wind and the sun. We're operating in 30 states and Canada, but Florida is our home. And we consistently rank among the Fortune World's most admired companies. In the state of Florida, there are 55 electric utilities, and we power approximately half. We have 4.8 million customer accounts, which we believe powers or serves at least 10 million people. We are the 3rd largest utility in the United States. Next slide, please. A little bit about our record. We are 35% cleaner with our emissions compared to the United States average. We maintain a 99.98 reliability record. And also, we expect our bills to remain at the 2006 level through the year 2020. A little bit about what we do. I told you a little bit about our parent company, NextEra Energy, and what they do with wind and solar, and a little bit about what FPL has done with solar in 2016. We have had 3 new plants into our fleet powered by photovoltaic panels. The first one is over in DeSoto County, close to our state's first large-scale photovoltaic project. Also over in Manatee County, near the existing natural gas plant, which it feeds into, and also over in Charlotte County, which is part of the sustainability project over at the Babcock Ranch. So we are well-versed in design, construction, and operation of solar plants. And now I'm going to turn it over to our project manager, Krista Hendricks.
Commissioners, thank you for your time this morning. My name is Krista Hendricks, and I am with the Solar Development Group with Florida Power and Light. My address is 700 Universe Boulevard, Juno Beach, Florida, 33408. That's our address at the FPL utility. As my colleague mentioned, we've been working to advance solar energy in Florida for more than a decade, and we're continuing that effort with the FPL Indian River Solar Energy Center. We are proposing to build a 74.5 megawatt AC project on about 355 acres, just west of I-95, just north of the Indian River-St. Lucie County border. In exploring areas that would be ideal for new solar projects, we look for land that is affordable, close to our existing FPL transmission lines, land that is flat and with minimal environmentally sensitive areas, and this land was ideal for this particular facility. Pending all approvals and permits from Indian River County, we intend to start construction here in a couple of weeks, and we expect to be complete by the end of this year. Once in operations, these facilities are unmanned. They're being monitored remotely from our Juno Beach facility and require very little maintenance. As such, there is no additional demand on public services, such as water and sewer. Next slide, please. Thank you. This particular facility will use stationary photovoltaic panels that will convert energy from the sun to direct current or DC current. The power is then converted to alternating current via the inverters, as you can see in the picture ahead. Once the power is converted to AC, it then will travel through the transformer, which boosts the voltage for delivery onto the transmission line. So it's a very easy picture to see how we convert the power from the sun to people's homes. Next slide, please. This slide depicts the typical components that you would see on a solar facility. The picture to your left is the primary support, which is driven approximately 10 feet into the ground. The racking system is then installed, as you can see in the next 2 photos, and then the individual solar panels will be hung after that the installation of the racking system is complete. As you can see from the photos below, the panels sit pretty low to the ground. They're about 6 to 8 feet high. Like I said, the racks fit directly into the soil, and something to note here, we do not require any concrete or fill for installation of the panels themselves. These projects are designed to be kind to our natural surroundings. On the next slide, you'll see a photo, which is a rendering of what the project would appear once constructed. You can see 122nd Avenue to the left of the photo, and to the north is State Road 60. The typical components that you'll see, and as staff has mentioned, will be the panels, the access paths, the inverters, which we spoke about earlier, and this site will have an on-site substation. The access paths are used for maintenance of the facility. Projects like these are great neighbors with agricultural communities. Solar projects create no dust or other effects that would impact adjacent communities or farming operations. This particular project is expected to create 200 to 250 construction jobs. And once these projects are complete, the plant will operate without water, fuel, or on-site personnel, placing no demand or little to no demand on public services. The panels will sit quietly, harvesting emissions-free energy from the sun with virtually no noise or visual impacts or environmental impacts for that matter. This site will generate enough electricity to power approximately 15,000 homes annually while helping our state meet its emissions goals. We look forward to continuing to build our relationship with Indian River County, and I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Commissioner.
What is the lifespan of the panels that you're putting in?
About 20 to 30 years.
And then what would happen after that? Would you replace them with the newest, latest, greatest technology, or?
That's a possibility. We would decommission the project, and at that time, if the opportunity exists, we could do that, or we may not.
Okay. If you decommission it, then would that involve removing everything and?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Epps?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask if the board would like us to look at the landscaping requirements in 926 to see if we need to make adjustments. As we know, that FPL is working on another solar array, so I anticipate we'll have a similar thing there. I just need to say for my staff, we're required to enforce the code that's there. So if you don't like the way it is, I think we need to look at changing the code. We may need to make a provision because this is an agricultural use, and there's a difference between agricultural property on 66th Avenue and agricultural property way out there from a common sense and a reality standpoint. Maybe we need to have some differentiator there. I'm a little concerned about making these waivers that don't appear to be in accordance with code on the fly. I think that's a problem. And if we think this doesn't make sense, I think we need to look at the regulation because we're required to enforce the regulation that is before us.
And Mr. Brown, I'd agree with you. I don't like doing things on the fly, but one of the things I like worse is wasting resources. So if you believe that we can get something before us reasonably quickly, I'd be happy to, well, not go ahead with that specific motion, but be willing to support something which I can believe puts us on a better path. I understand your problem and appreciate it and agree with it, but to sit here, if now that $60,000 price is real and we're talking about two for $120,000, it's something which is, for me, incredibly problematic. So I'm happy to go ahead with the idea that we'll be able to revise it in a way which will be satisfactory in a time frame that meets the reality of the situation.
And I want to point out that staff did try to minimize it as much as possible. It's only around the substation if we were
Well, I agree. The staff, I'm not upset with staff in the least little bit. I mean, everything that sets up, I understand the landscaping and everything, but sometimes reality hits in such a way as to make the general rule almost unpalatable. So I think we can work that through in the motion.
And holding out on the, Mr. Barquette is here and staff is available. Holding on to the handrails of that open mind as we entered into this discussion, I've seen many photovoltaic operations where they have angled glass and glass surfaces. It's reflective. And everywhere that I've seen them throughout this country, I've seen some sort of vegetation around it, and as a buffer, as the light. Is there any value to the fact that light, I realize the only neighbor you have might have 4 legs at this time, at this particular application, but is there any value for the reflective light from the sun? I mean, we are drawing energy from the sun, and there is reflection. And is there any value for the buffering of that light by having shrubbery around it? Is there any danger to perhaps aviation or that might be about, or maybe any future development, if any? Would it be advisable to have that vegetation or not? I'm asking for your input on it.
Why?
Well, I believe that there might be formidable staff behind you, Counselor,
Right.
that might be able to address that.
Let me start, and then we can go to staff. First of all, the current growth patterns of the county, you're not going to get out there before 20 years with any neighbors.
Correct.
So I would I would oppose putting in landscaping now to protect it from any future neighbors when we know the lifespan of the solar panels is going to die before you're going to have any neighbors out there. Second, I agree with Mr. Brown. I come up here all the time and argue with you guys, follow the law. And if there's no area in the code now that permits us to reduce the landscaping as staff presented, then I think that's what you have to do. But what could happen, so I want to be consistent. But if before we get to the landscaping phase of this project, an amendment to the ordinance can be reviewed, then perhaps we could come back for a modification of the site plan. I think that would be the proper way to do it. I agree with Mr. Brown on that. As far as the buffering around the solar panels with more landscaping, I'm going to let Florida Power and Light address that because
Thank you, Councilor.
That's beyond my expertise.
And I see that they're anxious and eager to address that question.
Engineers are always eager to talk about their product.
Thank you.
Kelly Fagan, 3900 Northwest 7th Court, Delray Beach, Florida. I'm with Florida Power and Light Engineering Construction, and I am the engineer project manager on this site. Excellent question. We do get that question a lot, mainly from airports or adjacent neighbors. The panels are made with an anti-glare coating. There are improvements in those coatings every year, and we have actually worked with some of the airports and currently working with St. Lucie Airport to potentially put some arrays around the airport. So that is a great concern to pilots. And in this area, we do have crop dusters and we do have pilots that we are definitely aware of. But yeah, the anti-glare coating has been approved by FAA, so it's something that really would not come into play with even if you put homes right up against the site. It's nothing that would glare into your windows because of the coating on the panels. So really wouldn't need any kind of vegetative buffer to keep a glare down. That's actually built into the panels.
And Mr. Chairman,
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to note that the City of Vero Beach Airport has actually looked into solar panels around the area of its airport, and Eric Menger, the director of the airport, has said he's talked with FAA and got the same exact advice as the FPL representative states, that they could put solar panels in basically that protected zone where the planes go over. So it's evidently not a danger to aviation at all, and I couldn't imagine that where this facility is located would be a danger to even future cows.
Well, I appreciate the response, and I believe that you may have assisted in adding to some common sense application in the future of this project. Thank you. Any other questions? At this time, we'd like to continue on with this hearing, and if there's any questions from the public.
I actually just have a quick question for Mr. Barquette. On the landscaping issue, what is your time frame for obtaining a certificate of occupancy?
Again, Kelly Fagan with Florida Power and Light, and I would support Mr. Bartel's idea about coming in for modification. Our timeline for start of construction is primary importance, so we would like, excuse me, we would like to get the site plan released so we could start construction the 1st of May. However, landscaping is probably one of the last things that we will do, so we do have some time to address the landscaping and a modification. We would need to address that by the end of December of this year.
Thank you very much.
Question for Dylan then. Would a modification to the site plan, since it's a special exemption use, would that have to go through the 2 public hearing process, or?
I mean, it's my advice always that whatever approval process you take to approve whatever development permit or development order, is that you would follow the similar process by which to modify that order. That's always my advice. However, if the board is interested, I could sort of work with staff real quickly on maybe coming up with some alternative language for 3 that almost makes it self-executing or whatnot, consistent with the changes. But
well, could we add condition number 4, like subject to any revisions to Chapter 926? that do not negatively
Yeah.
impact the project.
Or if we could do something such as direct staff to reduce the landscaping requirements to the minimum required per code at the time, by the time of CO or something like that, for release of CO. And then we could make those changes to the code and definitely before early December and have those in place.
So I guess, Dylan, for full transparency, the intent of what Commissioner Solari is trying to achieve is some reduction in the amount of required landscaping. We don't know what that final amount will be, but the intent and purpose is some reduction to reduce the cost and burden to the applicant. So if we can work that into the motion somehow, then I think we're probably good.
Agreed.
Just some proposal again for Jason and John is, prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall install all required landscaping improvements as shown on the approved project landscaping plan, except that the number of trees may be reduced and the spacing between trees may be increased as approved by the community development staff to the extent allowable by the land development regulations at that time. Does that meet or satisfy the thoughts?
I wouldn't even reference the trees and spacing. I'd leave it just.
The requirements may be reduced.
Any reduction in landscaping and.
Okay. So we'll keep the approved project landscaping plan except other landscaping that may be reduced as approved by the community development staff consistent with the land development regulations at that time.
Right. I'd be more comfortable with that because when we redo the whole ordinance, it's got to be applicable to all sites and not specific to this one. So it might be that instead of a type C buffer, we come up with a type D, which is, half of the C or so. I don't know, but so I don't want to get pinned down on the number and spacing.
Why not something that simply says that applicant may come to staff and ask to have current code applied to their site. If they come in before certificate of occupancy, applicant has the option to apply current landscaping provisions to their project or current code to their project.
Well, I think we're saying generally the same thing. But I'm certainly open for, if I hear, a motion from the floor, obviously we'll want to close the public hearing and then.
I figured we could wait till the end to.
That would
we can
work
kind of
for
work on
staff,
some conditions.
meeting the criteria in effect at the time that the project is essentially finishing and applying the code that's applicable at the time that the project is complete. So from a timing perspective, that works for staff.
From the applicant's perspective, that works very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, are we clear? With that, is there any input from the public? Any questions or concerns? Further discussion? I've been giving ample time. I see no one coming forward. We'll now, if there's any other questions by commissioners or staff or Florida Power and Light. Thank you, commissioners. We'll now move to the final presentations or argument, if necessary, by county staff. You have anything further?
None.
Thank you. And Florida Power and Light, is there any further input?
No,
Counselor?
Nothing further. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, we've been given some documents. Do we have a map here? Does the clerk of the court have this map?
I have provided a copy of this map to the clerk of the court.
Is there any other documentation that we need to ensure that the clerk has?
I think we're good, sir.
All right, and the county staff agenda materials will be automatically submitted into evidence unless there's any objection. Any objection from Florida Power and Light? Commissioners? Staff? At this time, we'll close the public hearing. And now we move on to the great work of the task at hand. Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to try to form a motion for this. I move staff recommendation modified for, prior to the site plan release, the applicant shall provide a recorded unity of title or 2 unities of title at 2 separate parcels which currently comprise the project site. And also that prior to utilizing an alternative project access route, the applicant shall obtain approval for any alternate project access route from Public Works and install the required improvements for any county culvert crossings. And prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall install all required landscaping improvements as shown on the approved project landscape plan or meet the criteria in the code at the time of the certificate of occupancy.
Second. We have a...
Mr. Attorney, is that clear enough and reasonable enough?
That was clear. The 2 issues that I have, and I don't know if this is consistent, I always just like to add as reviewed and approved by the Community Development Department with respect to the code requirements. I don't know if, John, if you just feel that's superfluous or if you're fine with as presented.
And I'm anticipating we would do some sort of review based on whatever code's in effect at that time, correct? I mean, that would make sense. It might be implied in the motion. I don't know if it needs to be expressed.
I'd be happy to put that in expressly as the attorney mentioned.
And then did you want to reference in the first condition that it'll be the combination of 3 separate parcels into 2 parcels currently?
I did it in such a way that gave them the option for 1 or 2.
Okay.
Unity.
Staff's opinion on the conditions as modified?
Yes, we agree with those conditions.
We good, Counselor? Counselor? Thank you. And County? We have a rather lengthy motion by Commissioner Solari with a brief second by myself. Madam Clerk, was it clear? You don't want Commissioner Solari to repeat that motion?
I want to test my skill set.
All right. Any further discussion here on the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Zorc absent. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Utility Services, Vero Lake Estates Subunit H3, petition for water assessment project, a request for authorization for the Department of Utility Services to proceed with the... You need something, Counsel? No. Oh, proceed with the engineering design services and to retain Carter and Associates for surveying services.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Solari. Great presentation, Vinnie. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Zorc absent. Next item on the agenda is the approval. We'll now move to the special districts and boards, which is the Emergency Services District, and we'll have the approval of the minutes for the meeting of January 24th, the approval of the minutes for February 7th, approval of the minutes for February 14th.
So moved. Second.
Okay, who wants? All right,
Commissioner Solari made the motion, I made the second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Solari, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Zorc absent. Next, bless you. Next item on the agenda is a request to purchase additional equipment using remaining funds from the Assistance of Firefighters Grant.
Move staff recommendation.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by myself. Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion? Any member of the public? I don't believe we have any input? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to the special districts and boards, which is the Solid Waste Disposal District, and we'll move on the approval of the minutes for meeting January 24th, approval for minutes for the meeting of February 7th,
So moved.
Second.
and that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Solari. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Zorc absent. Next item, and the final item, is a work order for number 10 to C.D. Smith Incorporated for C&D landfill permit renewal.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
And that's a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, seconded by Commissioner Solari. Any further discussion? Is there any input? Great presentation, Vinnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 4-0 with Commissioner Zorc absent. Does anyone else have anything needs to be brought before the board? This meeting? Yes, ma'am.
Could you come up to the
But
podium? So we're on the record?
we can't hear you if you...
Hi, I'm an attorney, Ruby Prieto with Safe Space, and I was actually here for item number 13,
And
if you
I-
were going to be speaking on that.
And that item was pulled by the county attorney.
Yeah, that was
So
pulled
it-
at the request of the county attorney, consistent with the request I received from Jeff Smith. So I recommend maybe you might want to talk to Jeff Smith about the request
Okay.
after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Seeing no further, meeting adjourned.